Namaskar. Today in Yog Vashisht, we will see what actually was the need for the instruction of sage Vashisht to Lord Ram, who himself was enlightened. He had self-knowledge. And second part would be dealing on the self-efforts, the efforts that we undertake. Now, as we all are aware, that the knowledge gained by Lord Ram was a result of his pilgrimage and an internal assessment, contemplation of what all went through in his mind. So it was actually not under the guidance of any realized person. Therefore, to seek a confirmation, Lord Ram was instructed by sage Vashisht. And sage Vashisht was a person who was himself enlightened and had complete knowledge of the scriptures. Therefore, he was a fit person to impart the instructions to Lord Ram, thereby confirming his knowledge. Second, he talks about the self-effort. Now, sage Vashisht says, in this world, whatever is gained is lost. And whatever is gained is temporary and a result of a self-effort. Any failure in this is due to the slackness in the self-effort. The fate is a fictitious entity created by the ego and not seen. He says self-effort is mental, verbal and physical action which is in accordance with the instructions of a holy person who is well versed with the scriptures. And it springs from the right understanding and expresses itself in the heart. The heart that is exposed to the holy person who is the knower of the scriptures. The self-effort has been categorized into two. One is a self-effort of the past, and second is self-effort of the present. Now, there is always a conflict between the two, and whosoever is more stronger emerges triumphant. And that is what we call fate, when the past effort is more stronger than the present one. And any self-effort which is not in accordance with the scriptures is motivated by delusion. Now, this is what is to be understood. The filter of delusion processes all the inputs from the senses to the mind. And therefore, what is arrived at is not a true representation of what it is. This is a play of the two gunas in our what we call antakarna, and This is a function of a mind that is not capable of firstly perceiving and second perceiving something wrong. Then he says, as is the effort, so is the fruit. Now, here it is that if one cries about the tragedy or the fate, divine will, it will indicate insufficiency of the effort in the present. Second, if without efforts someone makes a great gain, it is a result of his past self-effort of the previous part. So he has covered both the parts. One, he says, when things are being blamed for failures, being blamed on the fate or the divine will, it is actually insufficient self-effort of the present. But if something is gained without efforts, then it is a result of a stronger self-effort of the past birth. Now, after having said both these things, he further says that, say suppose a farmer, his crop is destroyed by a hailstorm. So that wisdom has to be there in that person to know what is in the ambit of self-effort and what is not, what is beyond it. So despite all the self-effort conducted by this farmer, the crop was destroyed because this destruction or this hailstorm was not in the capacity of the what do you call, the farmer's efforts. So the fate or the divine will therefore is a self-effort of the past, thus they are synonymous. There's a story of Papaji where a sage, a sadhu, who was doing prayers sitting in a forest, he wanted to go to Pandharpur. Yeah. And on his way, there was a lot of storm, and then he met an old man who said, you stay for the night at my place. In the morning, you can leave. He agreed. And that night, the young wife of this old man, she came to him and said, see, I like you and I wish to marry you. She kept insisting and he kept denying. Ultimately, she went inside, murdered her husband, threw the dead body in the well, collected all the gold and jewelry and came to him and said, see, my husband was the only hurdle and I have killed him. I have got this entire jewelry and money and it will be sufficient for both of us. And if you don't listen to what I say, I will raise an alarm. This man says, okay, do as you please, but I would not be doing what you say. The alarm was raised and she said, this man is from some village. He came to my house, murdered my husband and was making way with all the jewelry and the wealth. You can see everything is here. He was implicated, everything was found against him, and therefore the jury of the village decided that since this man is not from our village but he has committed a crime, therefore both his hands have to be cut off. Okay, fine. With the hands severed, he went to Pandharpur. There he was in front of his Lord and said, "See, I have been in your service throughout my life, but I do not understand why this has been meted out to me. So if you want, you can tell me, otherwise it's okay." So Lord appeared and he, using his divine eye, he made him see the past birth, the previous birth. And that was, in the previous birth also, he was a sage doing meditation in the forest. There came a cow and it hid in the hut of this sage. Then came a butcher and said, "My cow has come in this direction. Maybe it is there in your hut. Can you please give it to me?" He said, "Okay." He went inside, pulled the cow, and handed over to this butcher. So, in this birth, this man, old man, killed by the lady, was the butcher. The cow was the lady, and this sage, whose hands were severed, is the same sage who pulled the cow out. So this is how the what do you call, the past efforts, when they are stronger, this is what happens. Therefore, he says, direct the impure mind to pure endeavors by persistent efforts. And this is the very essence of all the scriptures. Now, no one has seen fate, but we all have experienced good or bad, depending on the action, the quality of action. Hence, he says, the child, right from his childhood, with the correct self-effort, directs the mind towards one's own good, and that is the salvation. Now, a very important thing. He says, renounce fatalism, that is, reliance on fate and divine will, and apply yourself to self-effort. Everything in the world except a corpse is active, and such activity yields appropriate results. No one has ever realized the existence of fate or divine dispensation. Now, the people who use the expression, "I am impelled by faith to do so and so," is actually for his own satisfaction and is not true. Because if it was true, the rishis would not have undergone the self-effort. The astrologers or the scientists would not have undergone self-effort to become what they became. And that is why here there is a reference of something called Kratant. Kratant means, it's a term which has got two aspects to it. One is end of an action and the inseparable result of this action. That is to say, the result will always succeed the end of action. This Kritant is ever vigilant, and it never separates from the result, and also it is tireless. Whoever does whatever deed faces the music, faces the result. We all would have at some point heard the story of Bhishma Pitama. As a as a young prince, he threw a snake out of his path, and it landed on a thorny bush and died there. That was as a prince. But when he was dying, it was in this birth, before his death, that he too breathed his last on the arrows, giving an experience of those thorns. It is only a matter of time. It may be immediate, it may be after a certain duration, but Kratant is a fact. What action we have done, when it finishes, there will certainly be a result. So therefore, we have to renounce fatalism and understand that all what we undergo is a result of self-effort, and the self-effort, either it is done in the directions of a holy person, or it needs the confirmation of that holy person. Only that would be doing benefit to us. Else there will always be a feeling of doubt. We should also understand that what is within the capability of the self-effort and what is beyond it. So these are a few things which I wish to share this morning. Thank you.